You step into the dazzling hall, music flowing gently with laughter, believing this will be just another splendid wedding. But then the moment arrives when the bride turns, her radiant smile freezes in your eyes. It's your sister, the one who once forced you to leave your own home, walking away from a past soaked in a cold night's rain. The instant your gazes lock, the room falls silent, and only your heartbeat echoes, reminding you of wounds that never fully healed. And right here, in the brightest place of all, the truths buried for years begin to tremble. If you love drama stories that pierce the heart, a gentle like and subscribe will let you walk through every twist without missing a beat. You stand in the glittering hall, but the silence that coils around you carries you back. Not just to one moment, but to years of memories buried beneath layers of survival. As your sister smiles in her white gown, you can't help but remember the girl you once were, the one who believed family meant protection, the one who thought love would be enough. It began with hope. You were young, ambitious, certain that your parents' words of encouragement meant something solid. You stayed up late, studying by the dim glow of a desk lamp, determined to earn every grade, every recognition. When acceptance letters arrived, you held them like keys to a future you had dreamed of for years. You trusted that the college fund set aside in your name would unlock that door. But one meeting with the bank shattered that dream. You remember staring at the balance, your breath caught in your throat. The account was empty. Not reduced, not diminished, emptied. And when you asked where it had gone, your parents' faces turned cold. They told you it was used for the family, close quote, though you knew what that meant. Grace. She had always been the one who never had to ask twice. You see yourself on that night, suitcase in hand, rain running down your face. You were not just leaving home, you were being pushed out of it. If you can't be grateful, close quote, your father had said, then don't come back. The slam of the door behind you was louder than the storm. You walked into the darkness with no money, no shelter, no safety. And yet, in that moment of abandonment, something inside you sparked. You slept on friends' couches, traded privacy for survival. Some mornings you woke stiff from the floor, some nights you stayed in the hospital lounge after a late shift just to stay warm. You learned to hide exhaustion under polite smiles, to carry hunger in silence, to accept pity without showing it stung. Yet even as your body bent under the weight, your will refused to break. You took 3 jobs. At dawn, you poured coffee for strangers, watching their hurried lives pass you by. At night, you sat behind the hospital reception desk, answering calls with a steady voice, even when your hands trembled with fatigue. On weekends, you sat in a cramped cubicle at a call center, repeating scripts into a headset while your textbooks waited on your lap. Each paycheck went to tuition. Each sleepless night brought another step forward. And though your family told others you had failed, the truth was far from failure. The truth was resilience, stitched into every page you studied under flickering lights. It was in that exhaustion that you met him, Michael. He noticed the diagrams scribbled in the margins of your textbooks, the flowcharts you created to fix problems no one else seemed to see. You understand this theory? Close quote, he asked, curiosity in his eyes. You didn't look up at first, too tired to care. But when you explained why the system was flawed, why patient flow bottlenecked in ways the textbooks ignored, something shifted. Someone finally saw you. Not the dropout your parents described, not the burden Grace's shadow made you, but a mind sharp enough to carve new solutions. He brought coffee the next night, then questions, then a partnership that blossomed into something greater. Together, you built the foundation of what would become Midova. At first, it was just sketches on napkins, trial runs and small clinics willing to take a chance. But your ideas worked. Patients recovered faster. Systems became smoother. What you created mattered. And soon, the company born in a cramped apartment began to reach hospitals across the country. But none of that erased the scars. You still remember the letters you wrote home, never answered. The phone calls that went unreturned. Holidays spent watching families gather while you sat alone, whispering to yourself that it would all be worth it one day. You remember standing outside your old house once, just for a moment, watching the warm light through the windows. Inside, Grace laughed at the piano, your mother's hand on her shoulder. No one noticed you in the shadows. Those years shaped you. They hardened you, but they also gave you clarity. You learned that dignity does not come from being chosen, it comes from choosing yourself when no one else will. You discovered that silence, though painful, can also be fertile. In the emptiness they left you, you grew roots they could not cut. And now, standing here in this dazzling ballroom, you feel the weight of those years pressing against the present. You look at Grace, her laughter ringing just a little too high, her movements polished to perfection. She carries herself as though she built the ground beneath her feet. But you know better. You live the cost of her shine. Every detail of this moment drags you back to the beginning. The cold night, the slammed door, the rain that soaked through your thin jacket. You remember gripping your suitcase so tightly your hands ached, whispering to yourself that one day, they would see. Not because you crave their approval, but because you refuse to vanish. And here you are. The girl they abandoned now stands in silk and steel, with a company reshaping medicine, a husband who believes in your vision, a son who sees you as everything you once longed to be. You did not just survive, you transformed. Still, the sting lingers. Because betrayal does not vanish with success. It echoes, long after the applause, in the quiet moments when you wonder what life might have been if they had chosen differently. Would you still have built Midova? Would you still have fought so hard? Or would comfort have dulled the edge that made you relentless? Perhaps you will never know. But you do know this. The past they tried to bury is the very ground you grew from. Every closed door, every harsh word, every stolen chance became a fire that forged you. And as you glance across the ballroom, watching Grace hold court with her guests, you feel the irony settle like a stone in your chest. She wears the crown they gave her, but its weight is hollow. You stand without their blessing, yet your presence commands the room. This is the backdrop of tonight's story, the years of silence, the sacrifices invisible to all but you, the resilience that turned exile into empowerment. Without it, this moment would mean nothing. With it, every glance, every whisper, every suspicion sparked tonight carries the power of truth. Because you know now what you did not know then. You were never the failure. You were the proof that being cast aside does not mean being erased. And that is why, as the music swells and the hall glitters, you remain calm. You know that storms built on lies eventually collapse. And you are no longer afraid of the collapse. You once thought survival was the end of your story. Tonight, you realize it was only the beginning. You once thought survival was the end of your story. Tonight, you realize it was only the beginning. And if you've ever carried the weight of being overlooked, or fought through silence just to prove your worth, let us remind you that strength is born in the darkest hours. A quiet like or subscribe is more than support, is a way of walking together through these drama stories, so that no one has to face the storm alone. The music continues to play, soft and elegant, but you hear it differently now. Every note feels distant, like background noise to the storm rising in your chest. You stand still, and yet the room shifts around you. Faces blur, glasses clink, laughter floats, but all you see is your sister Grace bathed in the glow of her wedding. She glances at you just once, her smile faltering. For a heartbeat, the mask she wears slips. But then she turns back to her guests, lifting her champagne as though nothing has cracked. You know better. You see the tremor in her hand, the stiffness in her shoulders. Your parents notice too. They move quickly, stepping into the invisible space between you and her. Your father's jaw tightens, his hand firm on Grace's arm, as though shielding her from something unspeakable. Your mother whispers sharp words through clenched teeth, her voice barely concealed by the chatter around her. You recognize that tone. It is the same tone she used when she hissed at you all those years ago, warning you never to return. The crowd senses it. Guests glance over their shoulders, curiosity sparking. They don't know the details, but they feel the tension. It radiates from your family like heat from a fire too long ignored. And then the whispers begin. Not about the past, but about you. Midova. The name drifts through the air, catching in conversations, turning heads. Some guests recall the articles, others remember your keynote speech at a conference, the one that made headlines for its vision of patient care. A doctor near the bar leans forward, his voice hushed but audible. That's her. The one behind the monitoring system. Close quote. His companion nods, recognition dawning. You do not need to speak. Your very presence has shifted the spotlight. Grace tries to hold her ground. She introduces herself with polished charm, speaking of her education, of the clinic she claims to manage, of the responsibilities she says she has carried. But the more she speaks, the thinner her words become. You watch the way Daniel, her new husband, studies her. His smile dims, his questions sharpen. He has believed her story until now, but doubt has crept in, and doubt is difficult to silence once it takes root. Then it happens. Your son tugs at your hand, his voice carrying across the hush. Mom, does the bride go to Stanford like you? Close quote. The innocence in his question slices through the air like a blade. Silence falls. Every guest turns, every glass stills. Daniel's gaze locks on Grace, waiting. She laughs nervously, her words tumbling over themselves. She mutters about remote learning, about special programs. But a guest interrupts, a physician who knows the truth. Stanford hasn't offered that track in years, close quote, he says, his brow furrowed. Another nods in agreement. Grace stammers, her smile stretching too thin, her voice pitched too high. Daniel steps back. Not far, but enough. The space between him and his bride is now visible, undeniable. He looks at her not as a husband enchanted, but as a man betrayed. His arm no longer rests around her waist. His hands no longer reach for hers. Instead, they remain at his sides, tense, questioning. You stand silent, your son's small fingers curled in yours. You do not need to add anything. The truth has already slipped into the open, and once spoken, it cannot be taken back. Your father tries to intervene again. His voice booms, commanding the room. This is her wedding day. Show respect. Close quote. But the authority that once silenced you holds no weight here. The guests have seen too much, heard too much. His words sound hollow, like a door slamming in an empty house. Eyes turn to you now. Not with pity, but with recognition. Some not subtly, as though they finally understand the story that was never told. You feel it too, the shift in power. For years, you carried shame alone. Tonight, it no longer belongs to you. Grace's eyes dart frantically. She pleads with Daniel in whispers, her words a jumble of excuses. But you see the truth in his expression. He is unraveling the lies she spun. Every claim, every boast, every story she wove about herself collapses under the simplest questions. Later, in the restroom, you find her standing before the mirror, mascara streaking her cheeks. Her voice cracks as she turns on you. Why are you doing this? Why now? Close quote. You set your clutch down calmly, meeting her gaze through the reflection. I'm not doing anything, close quote. You reply softly. I'm just here. The truth of those words slices deeper than any accusation. She slams her hand on the counter, fury trembling in her shoulders. You were supposed to stay gone. You were supposed to disappear. Close quote. And for the first time, your parents linger too, their faces pale, their movements frantic. They whisper urgently to one another, but no one listens. Their authority, once unshakable, has dissolved under the eyes of witnesses who now see through the illusion. It is not triumph you feel, not in the way you once imagined. It is release. You do not need to expose them. You do not need to demand recognition. The truth has done the work for you. And so you stand tall, your champagne untouched, your son at your side, your husband steady near you. You feel the moment settle deep in your chest. The past has returned, but it no longer controls you. You are not defined by their betrayal. You are defined by what you built in its aftermath. The music swells again, the chatter resumes, but nothing is the same. Grace's crown has cracked, her mask has fallen, and your presence, quiet, steady, undeniable, has become the center. Sometimes betrayal reveals itself not through shouting, not through confrontation, but through the quiet persistence of truth. And tonight, truth has found its way to the surface, refusing to be buried any longer. Sometimes betrayal reveals itself not through shouting, not through confrontation, but through the quiet persistence of truth. And tonight, truth has found its way to the surface, refusing to be buried any longer. And if moments like this resonate with you when lies crumble and truth stands steady, a gentle like or subscribe is enough. Not demanded, not forced, just a small step that keeps you close to these drama stories, so every twist and turn finds you right where you belong. The hall glitters, but the atmosphere has shifted. What once felt like celebration now feels like trial. Every guest seems to wait, suspended between the music and the silence, eyes flicking from Grace to Daniel, from your parents to you. The tension is no longer hidden, it is the room's heartbeat. Daniel's voice breaks through first. Calm, measured, but carrying the weight of doubt that can no longer be ignored. Grace, close quote, he says, turning to his bride, why do the stories not match? Why do the facts not align? Close quote. His tone is not cruel, but it is relentless, and every syllable feels like a pin piercing the fragile veil Grace has wrapped around herself. She tries again to laugh, to deflect. Her hands flutter as she speaks of special programs, of unusual circumstances, of professors who might remember her. But her words hang limp. Too many in the crowd know the truth that no such programs exist, that her narrative collapses under scrutiny. Murmurs rise, doctors exchanging glances, administrators frowning, colleagues piecing together the deception. Daniel takes a step back. The motion is small, but its meaning reverberates. His body no longer shields her, his arm no longer claims her. He stands apart, a man confronting the possibility that everything he believed has been false. Grace reaches for him, but he does not meet her hand. The distance between them is louder than any argument. Your father, desperate, steps forward again. His voice booms with authority, the same tone that once sent you running for cover. Enough. This is her wedding day. Respect her moment. Close quote. But the words fall flat. Guests glance at him, some with discomfort, others with quiet disdain. The power he once held evaporates under the harsh light of exposure. This crowd does not bend to his command. Your mother attempts another tactic, her smile stretched thin. She whispers to nearby guests, painting you as jealous, as always seeking attention, as bitter for being overshadowed. But the whispers do not spread. The evidence around them is too strong. Your composure, your achievements, the recognition voiced by respected professionals in the room, they weigh heavier than her feeble attempts to rewrite the story. The turning point comes quietly, from a voice unguarded by calculation. Your son looks up, innocent eyes wide. Mom, is she really your sister? You showed me your college pictures, but she wasn't there." His words, spoken without malice, ripple through the hall with devastating clarity. Grace freezes, her breath caught, her eyes darting wildly. Daniel stiffens, his gaze snapping to her, then to you. You kneel slightly, smoothing your son's hair, your voice gentle. But you know the damage is done. The crowd has heard the truth from the one voice no one can dismiss. A child's. The simplicity of his observation strips away every layer of Grace's lies. Daniel's expression hardens. "You told me you were the one who carried the clinic," close quote, he says, his voice now edged with steel. "You told me you graduated from Stanford. You told me," his words falter, not for lack of evidence, but for the sheer weight of betrayal. Grace's face pales, her lips tremble, but she offers nothing that can mend what has already broken. Silence spreads again, heavy, suffocating. It is the kind of silence that drowns, that fills every corner with judgment unspoken. And in that silence, the balance shifts. No longer is Grace the center of admiration. No longer are your parents the keepers of authority. The power lies elsewhere, among the witnesses, among the truths rising to the surface, and quietly, within you. Grace flees the room, her gown trailing, her steps hurried. The door slams behind her, leaving only echoes in her wake. The guests murmur, but no one follows. Daniel remains, his posture rigid, his gaze locked on the space she has left behind. He inhales sharply, then turns to you. For a moment, time stills. He does not speak, but his eyes ask what words cannot. "Who are you, truly?" And though you do not answer aloud, your presence speaks enough. You are the sister erased from the story, the woman who rose from abandonment, the truth they tried to bury but could not. Later, in the restroom, you find her again. She stands before the mirror, mascara streaked, hands gripping the counter, as though it might steady her collapsing world. She sees you in the reflection, her eyes wild with desperation. "Why are you doing this?" Close quote, she demands, voice cracking. "You are ruining my life." You set your clutch down slowly, meeting her gaze without flinching. "I'm not doing anything," close quote, you reply. "I'm just standing here." The words are quiet, but they slice sharper than any accusation. Because they are true. Your existence alone is enough to unravel the web she spun. She slams her hand against the marble, the sound echoing in the tiled room. "You should have stayed gone. You should have disappeared." Close quote, and in that outburst, the truth reveals itself. She has always feared not your failure, but your survival. The fact that you endured, that you succeeded, that you returned, threatens the fragile image she built. When you step back into the ballroom, the contrast is stark. Conversations orbit around you now. Guests gather to discuss your work, your ideas, your achievements. They are not whispers of scandal, but acknowledgements of respect. You did not seek this attention, but it has found you. Grace's absence only magnifies the emptiness of her claims. Daniel stands near you, no longer at her side. His questions are cautious but genuine, his interest no longer feigned. He listens as others speak of your contributions, his eyes narrowing as he measures the gap between what he was told and what he now knows. Your parents hover at the edges, their movements frantic, their expressions tight. They whisper urgently, casting nervous glances, but their influence wanes with every passing moment. They cannot control the story any longer. You realize, as the night draws on, that this is the climax of the tale. Not because you shouted, not because you fought, but because the truth has finally stood on its own. Lies crumble easily under scrutiny. Truth endures, even in silence. It is not triumph that fills you, it is release. The burden you carried for 11 years has shifted. The shame that once felt like chains has lifted. You no longer need to prove yourself to them. You no longer need their acknowledgement. The world has seen, the truth has spoken, and that is enough. As you leave the ballroom, whispers follow. But they are not whispers of doubt. They are whispers of recognition, of respect, of quiet astonishment at the story they have witnessed. You walk with Michael at your side, Leo's hand in yours, and you know. The moment of exposure has come and gone. Grace's facade has collapsed. The crown she wore has shattered. And in its place, the truth stands tall, steady, unshaken, undeniable. And for the first time in years, you feel light. Not because you destroyed her, but because you no longer carry the weight of being erased. The truth has done what you could not. It has spoken for itself. You leave the ballroom, the night air cool against your skin, but the weight inside you has changed. For years, you carried the silence of betrayal like a burden. Tonight, that silence broke open, and the truth poured out for all to see. You no longer feel like the exiled daughter, the forgotten sister. You feel like yourself, unhidden, undeniable. The days after the wedding pass in a strange rhythm. At first, you expect calls, accusations, perhaps even threats. Instead, there is only quiet. The kind of quiet that comes when people are too stunned to act. Then slowly, news begins to filter through. Daniel has not returned to the family house. Grace has been seen in public less and less, her polished exterior slipping away. Your parents cancel appointments at the clinic, citing vague family matters. But whispers travel faster than official statements. Patients murmur about billing errors, insurance inconsistencies, things they had overlooked until now. Then one morning, Daniel arrives at your office. His posture is weary, his eyes tired, but his voice is steady. He lays documents on your desk: records, invoices, numbers. Fraud, stretched over years, disguised as routine. He explains that he has spoken with lawyers, that investigations are already underway. He says he never wanted this, never imagined the family he married into was built on deception. But he cannot ignore the evidence. He looks at you then, regret plain on his face, and says quietly, "I should have seen sooner." You study the papers. None of it surprises you. Deep down, you always suspected. Your family didn't just steal your tuition, they built their comfort on stolen trust, stolen funds, stolen dignity. You nod, not with anger, but with resignation. The truth has a way of surfacing, whether you chase it or not. In the weeks that follow, the Collins name begins to unravel. The clinic shutters under investigation, its reputation collapsing. Patients step forward with stories, each one a piece of the puzzle. Neighbors whisper. Headlines appear. The family that once prided itself on status now lives under the shadow of exposure. Grace tries to reach you. Calls, messages, voicemails that swing between desperation and anger. At first you listen. Her voice cracks with tears, then sharpens with blame. She begs for help, then threatens to twist the story. But you stop listening after a while. Deleting her words becomes an act of quiet power. You refuse to let her voice anchor you to the past. Then, one afternoon, a letter arrives. Her handwriting is shaky, but unmistakable. You open it slowly. The words spill in confession. She admits the lies, the jealousy, the fear that your success would always eclipse her. She says she thought she needed to erase you to shine. She apologizes, not asking for money, not demanding rescue. Only confessing, perhaps for the first time, that she was wrong. You sit with the letter for a long time, your hands still. Forgiveness does not come easily, and it does not come now. You fold the paper, slide it back into the envelope, and place it in your desk. It will not define you, but you keep it not as a token of reconciliation, but as proof that even she could no longer deny the truth. Months pass. Your life continues, not untouched, but stronger. Midover grows. Michael thrives in his work. Leo runs through the garden, his laughter carrying through the evenings. Your world feels solid, built not on illusions but on effort, on endurance, on love chosen freely. And yet, the past still brushes against you in unexpected ways. At a medical conference, you spot her. Grace. No longer in gowns or glittering jewelry, but in simple scrubs, sitting quietly at the edge of the room. In her hand, she clutches an application form for an internship program you sponsor. Your eyes meet. There is no dramatic confrontation, no tearful embrace. Only a nod. A silent acknowledgement. She has fallen, and perhaps she is learning. You do not reach out, but you do not turn away. Some ties cannot be repaired, but they can be redefined. Back home, your garden thrives. Leo crouches beside new seedlings, patting soil around their roots. You kneel beside him, guiding his hands. Some plants flows quote, you tell him, don't grow well when planted too close. They need space. He looks up, eyes curious. Like people. Close quote, you smile, touched by his intuition. Yes, close quote, you whisper. Like people. In that simple moment, you understand the heart of your story. You did not win by tearing your family down. You did not triumph by exposing every wound. You found peace by choosing your own ground, by planting new roots where old soil failed you. You built a life not from their approval, but from your own persistence. The echoes of the past remain, but they no longer define you. You are not the girl left behind. You are the woman who refused to vanish, who turned betrayal into resilience, silence into strength. And as the sun dips low, painting the sky in amber, you realize, this is your true inheritance. Not their money, not their name, but the life you created despite them. The storm has passed. The lies have collapsed. And in their ruins, you stand whole, unbroken, and free. You linger by the garden as the last rays of sunlight stretch across the sky, turning the earth golden. Leo's laughter drifts through the warm evening air, and Michael's steady presence beside you feels like the anchor you always searched for. The world you once feared would crumble has instead grown stronger, built on honesty, resilience, and love. The voices of the past still echo faintly, but they no longer bind you. You understand now that family is not defined by blood alone, but by those who choose to stand with you, no matter how fierce the storm. As you cover the last seedling with soil, you smile, knowing that your story is no longer one of loss, but of renewal. And if you have ever carried scars like these, let this journey remind you that your strength matters. A gentle like or subscribe is enough to keep sharing these drama stories together, not as an obligation, but as a quiet step forward, walking side by side into the next chapter. 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 Walking side by side into the next chapter.